Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into muddy boots, fumbling with unfamiliar armor straps, and stepping into a world you probably won't survive, at least not with your dignity intact. Welcome to a medieval battlefield, not the Hollywood kind, with slow-mo sword swings and glorious death speeches. No, tonight we're getting real. Because the truth is, most of it was awkward, smelly, confusing, and strangely enough, a little boring. You're about to experience all of it firsthand. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge into camp just before dawn. The sun hasn't yet decided if it wants to rise, and everything's tinted a dull blue. Your feet are soaked from yesterday's rain and last night's dew. Your boots squelch, your armor borrowed dented and about half a size too snug, chafes at your neck and pinches your ribs every time you breathe too deeply. Think it's all glory and honor, just wait. There's no grand music or banners fluttering dramatically, just the tired shuffle of dozens of other men and boys around you, yawning, scratching, adjusting belts, and trying to look brave. You glance at the captain, who looks about as enthusiastic as a man headed to a dentist with a sword. His beard is frosted with sleep, and he's nursing something in a wooden cup that smells suspiciously like yesterday's wine. You don't know exactly why you're here. Maybe it was land promised to your family. Maybe some local feud between nobles who've barely met. Or maybe, if you're honest, it was the coin. 6 copper pieces a week, and all the barley stew you can stomach. Historians still argue whether most medieval fighters were actually professional soldiers or more like day laborers with pointy sticks. As you follow the path through the outer trenches, the camp slowly stirs to life. There are tents patched together from 4 different kinds of cloth. One has a goose tethered beside it, pecking angrily at someone's helmet. Another has a woman, likely someone's wife or cook, stoking a smoky fire and muttering about soggy kindling. The smell hits you before anything else. Wet wool, boiled onions, horse manure, and unwashed bodies. It's a medieval perfume that clings to your nostrils. You pass a latrine trench and thank every saint you know that you ate light this morning. No speeches, no war cries, just bread fear and silence. Someone hands you a half loaf of bread and a strip of hard cheese, and that's your breakfast. No speeches. No today we fight for glory. Just chewing, quiet, and the sound of a nervous horse trying to back out of its harness. A priest weaves through the crowd mumbling prayers and offering thin blessings with a cross that keeps getting caught on his robe. You nod because everyone else does, and because deep down you hope it might help. Then comes the armor check. A grizzled sergeant taps your chest plate with the hilt of his knife, snorts disapprovingly, and mutters something about clankers. You try to smile, but your jaw's too tense. There's no training montage here, just aching muscles from the march, the memory of yesterday's boots rubbing your heel raw, and the knowledge that in a few hours, people will be trying very hard to kill you. You scan the horizon. Fog still clings to the edges of the field where today's battle is supposed to happen. You half expect some dramatic banner to rise above it, maybe a silhouette of a heroic knight on a hill. Instead, you see a man relieving himself behind a bush, This is how battles begin, not with fanfare, but with fidgeting and farting and the occasional dropped helmet. Still, your fingers twitch around your weapon. It's more of a long knife than a sword. You tell yourself that it's light and fast, but deep down, you wish it were bigger, or sharper, or maybe enchanted. A boy next to you, maybe 15, keeps adjusting his gauntlets like they might suddenly fit better. You nod to each other. You don't speak. There's nothing to say yet. A crow lands on the edge of a broken cart, cocks its head at the scene, and hops off again. Probably has better places to be. And then finally, you hear it. The muffled beat of hooves in the distance. Someone whispers, "They're coming." You clutch your hilt and take a deep breath. The sun begins to rise. The moment the sun breaks the horizon, it's not heroism that greets you, it's stink. The battlefield, for all its deadly promise, smells like an unholy stew left on the fire too long. Before the first sword is even unsheathed, your nostrils are assaulted by a potent blend of horse sweat, old leather, boiled cabbage, unwashed humanity, and the unmistakable tang of nervous flatulence. It's remarkable, really, how quickly your nose decides to give up. You try breathing through your mouth, but that just adds a new layer of horror, the taste of the air. Thick metallic, a hint of moldy bread. Someone nearby is rubbing garlic on their blade, swearing it'll prevent infection. Historians still argue whether medieval soldiers believed in battlefield superstitions out of faith or simply desperation. You inch forward, in line armor clanking like a kitchen drawer. The man ahead of you scratches under his helmet, then offers you a grimace that might be a smile or just trapped wind. His breath smells like last night's beer and regret. Nearby, a mule starts braying in protest, apparently fed up with the noise and the smell. Its handler gives it a pat, mutters something soothing, then casually spits on the ground. You realize then that this war effort relies more on animals than strategy. If the mule bolts, half the supplies go with it. You pass a cooking fire where someone's trying to warm a pot of stew. It bubbles ominously, a suspicious greenish hue at the surface. You'd rather take your chances with enemy arrows than whatever's floating in there. A soldier scoops some into a wooden bowl and shrugs. "Better than dry bread," he says. You're unconvinced. Suddenly, the wind shifts. A gust carries the scent of the enemy camp identical stew, more horses and something that smells oddly like cloves. Someone jokes that their side clearly has better cooks. Another claims that means they're richer, and richer men fight harder. A third says the opposite: rich men don't want to die. You all fall quiet thinking about that one. The captains gather ahead, gesturing at a rough map drawn in charcoal on a bit of stretched hide. None of the grunts know what it says. It's probably "go there and don't die." You're reminded again that most medieval armies weren't made of disciplined soldiers with matching uniforms, but a loose collection of farmers, merchants, and unlucky villagers with pointy sticks. Organized chaos at best. The mood in camp is twitchy. No one speaks above a murmur. The jokes dry up. A young fighter tightens the leather on his greaves for the 4th time. Another practices swinging his axe gently, as though afraid to dent it before the big show. You sit on an overturned bucket and watch steam curl up from your breath. Your stomach growls. Hunger or fear or both. You're not sure. Time crawls. You thought the battle was brutal. The waiting is worse. Waiting is the real battle. It always is. Every creak of leather, every distant bird call feels like a signal. You stare at the horizon so long your eyes start inventing motion. Maybe that's dust from a horse. Maybe it's just mist. Maybe it's your imagination desperately trying to make anything happen. You've been here for hours. Your knees ache. Your fingers are stiff. Someone behind you mutters a prayer in a dialect you don't recognize. You wonder if he's praying for victory or for quick death. To your left, a group of archers is playing dice. One rolls poorly and curses the bones. Another laughs and says the loser has to carry the arrows. They all chuckle too loudly. You wonder if it's nerves or if they've just accepted what's coming. A runner passes through breathless, waving a message none of you get to read. His face is flushed eyes wide. He disappears into a tent. A captain emerges moments later with a tight jaw and calls over two riders. The horses snort, paw the ground. One relieves itself with a plop that is somehow the loudest sound of the morning. You adjust your armor again. Your chest plate digs in every time you inhale. Your helmet, borrowed from a cousin who didn't make it back last time, smells like old beer and mildew. You try to ignore the tickle in your throat. Coughing would just make it worse. You look to the sky, still gray. No birds now. Even they know better. Someone sneezes, loudly. The man beside him glares like he's just doomed the entire camp. And then just when you think maybe this whole thing was a false alarm, a horn sounds. Not loud, not cinematic. Just one long, flat note like someone sat on a bagpipe. You stand. You're not ready, but you stand. Because now, it begins. The horn echoes into silence, and then nothing. No charge, no sudden clash. Just the awkward shuffle of hundreds of feet as men adjust their stance and realize we're still waiting. You shift your weight from foot to foot. Your right boot soaked through the leather, cracked near the heel. The cold squelch with every step reminds you that comfort was not part of your enlistment agreement. A full hour passes, then another. If you thought war would be an adrenaline-soaked blur of shouting and heroism, welcome to reality. Medieval battlefields involved long, tedious spells of anticipation, punctuated by brief moments of chaos. You sit back down on your bucket. Someone else finds a flat rock. One man lies down in the mud and covers his eyes with his arm. You're surprised how much of this war is just sitting around. To pass the time, a pair of men nearby start flipping copper coins. Not betting, just flipping. Watching them spin and clink on the ground. The game is simple heads we live, tails we don't. They both laugh. Nervous, brittle laughter. You don't join in. A few paces away, two armored soldiers are in a heated whisper argument about whether ducks can smell fear. You don't know who started this debate or why it matters, but you're grateful for the distraction. Historians still argue whether camp banter helped ease tension or just masked it. Either way, it's working. You look around and notice something that hadn't occurred to you before. Nearly everyone is fidgeting. Some are polishing weapons they've already cleaned 3 times. Others adjust straps that aren't loose. A man nearby keeps checking his belt pouch to make sure he didn't drop his only coin. He didn't. He's just scared. Your stomach growls again. This time, a nearby soldier hands you half an apple. It's brown in the middle but sweet. You nod your thanks, and he shrugs like it's nothing. Moments like this remind you that war makes strange friendships born not of shared interests, but of shared fear. Then there's the bladder situation. No one talks about it, but you're all quietly considering the same thing. You've been standing here for hours in armor that weighs as much as a goat, and nature does not respect rank or valor. Eventually, a few men shuffle off to the bushes. One just goes where he stands. You envy his courage, or maybe his apathy. You'd think soldiers would spend this time mentally preparing, rehearsing tactics. But honestly, most are thinking about the stew they didn't finish, or whether they left the gate latched at home. Some are probably fantasizing about running off, finding a farm far away, and never seeing a sword again. An older soldier beside you starts telling a story loud enough for those nearby to hear. It's about a skirmish from years ago. They said the enemy had wolves, he begins, but they were just dogs, skinny ones, still bit like sin. You nod politely. The story meanders, includes a romantic subplot, and ends with him losing a toe to frostbite. Not quite inspiring, but it passes time. Another hour. A shout from the front causes a ripple of movement. You stand, then sit. False alarm. You're starting to think that boredom is the real enemy here. Then, finally, movement. A scout gallops past his horse, muddy to the belly. He yells something you can't make out, but it sets the camp abuzz. A captain appears, points toward the rise, and several lieutenants fan out barking instructions. A man with a horn tries to look important, but mostly looks cold. Formations are called. You find yourself in a cluster of 10. The captain yells something about holding the line. You nod along, even though no one really knows where the line is or what it's supposed to hold. Your group starts moving slowly, like a reluctant parade. Shields up shoulders, tense eyes darting. The horizon remains stubbornly blank. You finally crest the low ridge that borders the field. There in the distance, you see them, a line of men who look just like you. Same nervous stance. Same cheap armor. Same, how did I end up here expression. It's hard to think of them as enemies. The line pauses. Your heart doesn't race. It hiccups, like it's trying to decide if this is really happening. Another horn, shorter, sharper. You take your first step forward, not into battle, but into yet another long wait. Because even now, even with the enemy visible, it's not time. There's more waiting. Always more waiting. The order finally comes, but it's less of a dramatic battle cry, and more of a grunted, go. And so, you go, sort of. You try to look like you know what you're doing, but the reality is that you're just walking forward in a heavy line of men, most of whom are shuffling, tripping slightly on uneven ground, or awkwardly trying to hold a shield and weapon at the same time without poking themselves in the eye. The first charge isn't a gallant sprint. It's more like a clumsy migration. Mud sucks at your boots. You nearly fall 3 times in the first 50 steps. The field is soggy from last night's rain, and your already stiff knees are now expected to act like shock absorbers. They do not. The man beside you farts loudly and doesn't apologize. No one says anything. You're all too busy watching your feet. From behind, a trumpet squeals again, encouraging what can only be described as a mildly enthusiastic shuffle. It's not exactly cinematic. You've always pictured charges as these elegant movements, lines of armored men, dashing in unison, swords gleaming destiny in their eyes. But here you are grimacing against a cramp, trying not to trip over a bush, and realizing that someone ahead of you just dropped their spear. You don't want to laugh, but you do, quietly. It's either that or cry. The enemy is now close enough that you can see the whites of their eyes, which amusingly look just as wide and terrified as yours. They're not orcs or beasts or mindless killers. They're scared farm hands, same as you. You almost wave. The distance closes. You tighten your grip. You try to remember what the captain shouted about foot placement and swinging from the shoulder. Something about balance. Or was it, don't panic? You forget because suddenly a horse gallops past and startles half the line into jumping sideways. Your captain yells again this time, less rallying and more frustrated parent at a medieval PTA meeting. Ready or not, chaos is coming. And then it happens. Contact, not all at once. Not a thunderous clash like in the songs, I says. More like a stuttered series of bumps, clangs, and shouts. You collide with someone. You don't know who. Your shield hits a chest. A sword clangs against metal, somewhere to your left. A man yells, but it's more confusion than pain. You're still upright. That's good. You raise your weapon and swing. You miss. Entirely. Your arm was too stiff, the blade too short. It doesn't matter. The man you were aiming for is already tangled up with someone else. There's so much noise, metal, shouting, grunting, screaming, and always, always the rhythmic thud of feet moving in muck. You get shoved from behind. You stumble forward. You raise your shield just in time to block a clumsy blow. It glances off with a loud clonk. Your arm tingles. You're in it now. The real thing. It's chaotic. Not orderly. Not glorious. Definitely not what the bards sing about. You keep swinging, blocking, ducking. At one point, you nearly drop your weapon when someone trips and grabs your arm for balance. The only real strategy at this point is don't die. Maybe hit someone. You look up and realize you've somehow moved 10 feet away from your group. That wasn't the plan. You edge back toward the man who farted earlier. He seems trustworthy in a pinch. Someone near you drops to the ground. You don't know if he tripped, was hit, or just decided this was a good time for a nap. Either way, he disappears under a wave of boots and shields. You try not to look. Your shield is dented now. Your weapon is sticky with something mud, probably. You hope it's mud. A loud clang rings out nearby, and you turn just in time to see a knight, an actual knight, all polished and furious, slam his mace into someone's helmet. The helmet crumples like a pie tin. The knight roars something unintelligible, probably Latin. You back away from him. As you catch your breath, a man shouts, "For the duchy." You have no idea what that means, but you shout too. It feels right. This entire mess is somehow still going. You'd have thought battles would last a few frantic minutes, but this is minute. What to 2030? You're tired. Not winded, just tired. Your shoulders ache. Your hands hurt. You're sweating in places you didn't know could sweat. Someone stumbles past you, blood trickling from their nose. They don't even stop, just keep going, shield raised, expression flat. It's almost routine. And then, for just a moment, the chaos parts. You have space to breathe. You stand blinking, panting. You're still here. The first thing you truly notice now that your ears aren't ringing is the noise. It's everywhere. Not just one kind of noise either. It's layers, clanging metal horse screams, the dull thud of body meeting body hooves pounding somewhere behind the lines, and above all, your own breathing, ragged loud and too fast. You try to slow it down, but every time you inhale, it just draws in more of the battlefield stench. Sweat, mud, iron, fear. You realize quickly that most of the fighting isn't cinematic swordplay. It's panic, it's noise, and it's trying to keep your feet underneath you. A man near you bellows like he's rallying a charge, but then he immediately stumbles backward into a tree stump and falls flat. His sword goes flying. He groans, curses, and scrambles to his feet like a crab. You reach out instinctively and help him up. He nods thanks, and you both dive in different directions again. You manage a decent swing, not elegant but firm, at someone in a green tunic. They block it with a shield grunt and counter with a jab you barely avoid. It's not personal. It's barely even targeted. You're both just trying to survive the mess. Historians still argue whether the average medieval soldier actually had formal training, or if most simply mimicked what they'd seen others do. Right now, it feels like nobody was trained for this. Everyone's just making it up as they go along. There's a whinny behind you, and then a galloping crash as a riderless horse barrels through the crowd, knocking men aside like bowling pins. One man actually clutches its tail as it passes, somehow stays upright, and gets dragged halfway across the field before letting go. Another knight helmet, off-face, sweaty, and wild-eyed, shouts something you can't understand. It might be French, or very broken Latin, or just unhinged screaming. He charges past, weapon raised high, only to stop short when he trips over a fallen pike. You realize in that moment that no one really has control of this situation. The captains, the lieutenants, the banner carriers, they're all just reacting. No brilliant maneuvers, no synchronized assaults. The elegant chess game of war is more like toddlers fighting over spoons. You back up trying to find your footing and bump into someone who yells at you for stepping on his heel. You apologize in the middle of a battle. Then you both laugh, a short, panicked, ridiculous laugh, and move on. Someone singing. Badly, loudly, off-key. It's a song about beer and nuns, and it keeps getting louder until it ends with a hiccup and a very dramatic huzzah. It's oddly comforting. Then, just as you begin to feel a bit steadier, a trumpet blows again. This time, the tone is shriller, panicked. A call to regroup maybe, or retreat. No one reacts the same way. Some surge forward, others fall back. A few pretend they didn't hear it and keep doing whatever it is they're doing. Fighting, hiding, searching for lost weapons, or just crouching behind a tree root muttering to themselves. You duck as something whistles past your ear. Arrow spear. Angry bird. Doesn't matter. You keep moving. Your helmet fogs up again. You've wiped the inside with your sleeve so many times it's just a smear of dried sweat and grime. You tip it back slightly, trying to see better, and nearly get your nose broken by a flailing elbow. The noise increases again, crescendoing into something that feels like a storm. You can't tell who's winning. It doesn't feel like anyone is. It feels like everyone is trying to get through the next 60 seconds with their limbs intact. Somewhere in the distance, you hear a cow mooing. You can't tell if it's real or just your brain playing tricks on you. You hunker down, beside a broken wagon. Take a deep breath and peek out. The field looks like a tavern brawl spread across an acre of mud. There's no neat line, no dramatic face-offs, just clusters of people, some fighting, some flailing, some crawling away. It's then you notice your sword hand is trembling. Not from fear, though, let's be honest. There's a healthy dose of that, but from exhaustion. Your grip is sore. Your shoulder aches. You flex your fingers and hope they don't lock up. And still, the noise. You swear it's louder now. Not just around you, but inside you. Like your heart has learned to beat in clangs and shouts. And yet, weirdly, in the middle of all of it, you're still here. You're still standing. You blink, and suddenly you have no idea who anyone is. The battlefield is now a blurred canvas of color, mud, and movement. Every tunic looks the same. Every face is either covered by a helmet or smeared with grime. The sun, if it's even still out, has vanished behind a shroud of smoke and dust. You're fighting in a fog of noise and confusion. At first you try to follow the banners. That seems smart, but they keep moving, or falling, or getting trampled underfoot. One red standard you've been watching just got used as a pole arm by a man who then promptly dropped it while screaming something about soup. So you give up on strategy. You just react. A blur to your left lunges, and you block without thinking. A jab comes from your right deflected. You swing at a shape in front of you that raises its hands and yells. Same side, you apologize, again, in the middle of battle. It's becoming a habit. The ground beneath your feet turns to soup. You step into what was once grass and is now a slippery mess of mud, blood, and trampled roots. You nearly fall, catch yourself, then immediately get shoved forward into someone's back. They curse, whirl, raise their fist, then recognize you and grunt. Friendly enough. You're starting to think medieval warfare was mostly a test of balance. Someone screams for a medic, though what they actually get is a nearby monk holding a prayer book and a very vague expression. The monk tries to bind a wound using a piece of curtain and a twig. The patient doesn't seem impressed. A horn blares again, and your group tries to pivot. The man next to you doesn't pivot. He slips. You grab him by the collar and yank him upright. He says nothing, just nods and keeps swinging. You're now part of a knot of about 8 fighters. No one speaks. You just glance at each other every few seconds to make sure no one's died yet. There's no plan, just shared survival, then disaster. You lose sight of the line, the actual formation. The "you stand here, you move there" part gone. Someone yelled to shift left, someone else said hold, and a third person pointed right and ran off. The field swallows up orders faster than they can be shouted. You look around and realize you could be 10 feet or 100 feet from your original position. You have no idea. Everything smells like rusted iron and damp wool. You're surrounded by a low wall of groaning shouting and the occasional off-key battle chant. Historians still argue whether command structures broke down this quickly in real medieval battles, or whether it just felt that way to the men on the ground. You're starting to believe the latter. A horse dashes through again, riderless, wild-eyed, and clearly done with this nonsense. It nearly plows into your group, and half of you duck. The others raise their shields like it's a particularly aggressive goose. You try to regroup, to reorient yourself. There's a man yelling on a stump, possibly a captain, possibly just someone who found a good view. He points and shouts until he's tackled by someone else, and they both vanish into the fray. In front of you, two men square off in a manner that actually resembles a duel. For about 6 seconds, then a third runs between them, screaming with his eyes closed, waving a mace like he's shaking off bees. You've stopped trying to understand what's happening. You just focus on not dying. Forget strategy. This is survival. And your helmet. Dear saints, your helmet is fogged up again. You lift it slightly, squinting through sweat-soaked lashes, and see what might be your original group. Or another group that looks just like them. You trudge toward them, slipping twice and catching yourself both times with movements that would impress a cat. You're almost there when someone grabs your arm. You whirl ready to strike and find yourself face to face with a soldier in blue, gasping, holding a broken spear. He looks at you. You look at him. Neither of you moves. Then he nods, lets go, and disappears into the crowd. You're not sure if that was mercy or fatigue, but you're grateful. Your sword, your trusty, slightly too short borrowed blade, is stuck. You pull. It wiggles. You yank. It stays lodged, stubborn as a mule in a rainstorm. It's jammed deep into the wooden planks of a discarded shield, wedged at such an awkward angle that you might as well have stabbed the earth itself. You glance around, hoping no one saw. But of course, someone did. A young soldier nearby gives you a sympathetic nod and offers, "Been there." You nod back sheepish. Then you place one foot on the shield, grip the hilt, and haul with all your weight. With a squelch and a clang, it comes free just in time for your helmet to slide forward and bonk you on the bridge of your nose. Perfect. Medieval war, where every small victory comes with a bruise. You adjust the helmet again. It keeps fogging up. You try the trick someone told you earlier, rubbing a bit of onion on the inside. It just makes your eyes water. Now, you're blind and crying and smell like a stew. A noise behind you, a quick clink clink, makes you spin around too fast. Your foot slips and you end up seated firmly in the mud. It's warm. Probably not just mud. A pike wielder helps you up with one hand while still parrying blows with the other. "Good sit?" he asks. You nod. What else can you say? Your gear is misbehaving. Your belt pouch has come loose and is bouncing annoyingly against your thigh. Your left gauntlet won't close all the way. A strap on your cuirass has begun to fray, so the whole thing wobbles slightly when you move. You feel like a very lethal maraca. Historians still argue whether medieval armor was a blessing or a burden. Right now, you'd say both. It deflects the occasional blow, yes, but it also turns every movement into a full-body negotiation. To your left, a man yells in triumph after delivering a solid hit, then drops his axe because his sweaty hand slips off the grip. It lands on his foot. He howls more in surprise than pain. Another soldier tries to reload a crossbow and accidentally pinches his finger in the mechanism. The resulting curse is so colorful that you make a mental note to use it later. A knight nearby attempts a dramatic charge only for his visor to snap shut mid-gallop, blinding him. He veers sideways, hits a bush, and topples over. The bush wins. You wonder briefly What the chroniclers will write about this battle. Probably something about heroic formations and righteous fury. You snort. If they tell the truth, they'll mention jammed weapons, foggy helmets, and the noble order of falling over. A man next to you has tied a handkerchief over his nose. Smells like my uncle's bathhouse, he says. After his goat moved in. You don't ask for details. Suddenly, your weapon slips from your hand again. This time, it's a mix of slick fingers and sheer clumsiness. It lands just a few feet away, but those few feet might as well be a mile. They're in open space. You'll have to run. You breathe. 1, 2, go. You dart forward, snatch the sword, and turn just in time to deflect a blow with your forearm. It hurts like blazes, but your gauntlet takes the worst of it. You thank the blacksmith in your head, then you whack your attacker with the flat of your blade. They stumble. You both freeze. Neither of you knows what to do next. The moment passes. They back off. You nod. They nod. It's all very polite for a war. Another helmeted figure near you is screaming, but when you look closer, it turns out they're just shouting at their own boots. Something about traitorous laces. You don't ask. You finally fix your chest strap using a piece of string from someone's arrow fletching. It holds. For now. Everything is too loud again. You can't hear yourself think. Your nose still stings from earlier. Your armor squeaks with every step. Your sword has developed a weird bend near the tip. You wonder how many of the men around you will still be here at sunset. You wonder if you will. And still, somehow you keep going. It happens so suddenly that you nearly trip over him. He's not charging, not yelling just there. Right in front of you, close enough to see the stubble on his chin and the dried blood on the collar of his padded tunic. For a heartbeat, you both freeze like two people reaching for the same apple in the market. What if the enemy isn't so different after all? He looks your age, maybe younger. His armor's scuffed, his shield cracked. His expression isn't hatred or fury. It's the same look you've seen in every water bucket line, every back alley dice game, mild surprise, mixed with, well, this is awkward. You don't move. Neither does he. This is your moment, the kind ballads are built on. The clash of blades, the roar of destiny, the sweeping orchestral music. Instead, you both hesitate. He lifts his sword. You raise your shield. He takes a small step left. You shuffle right. It's like the world's deadliest dance, and neither of you knows the choreography. You make the first move. A short lunge, a swing not to kill, but to test. He blocks barely, then returns a jab that clips your shoulder. It smarts, but it doesn't break skin. You circle more out of instinct than strategy. Your feet slip on the mud, and you flail slightly to regain balance. He sees your stumble and hesitates again, long enough for you to wonder if he's as unsure as you. Historians still argue whether these one-on-one clashes were common or rare in medieval warfare. From where you're standing, heart-thudding legs shaking opponent 10 inches away, they feel unavoidable. A shout distracts you both. You glance up just in time to see a man flung from his saddle in a blur of flailing limbs. You look back, and your opponent is still there, still not attacking. Finally, he grunts something in a language you don't understand. You blink. He repeats it this time, more clearly. It sounds like enough. You nod, or maybe you shrug. It doesn't matter. You both back away step by slow step, eyes still locked, just in case. Then he's gone, vanished into the fog. of battle, a ghost of a skirmish that never quite happened. You exhale, and then the war remembers you. Something crashes into your left side, a shield, a body you don't know. You stagger sideways, barely catch yourself, and raise your sword just in time to deflect a clumsy, overhand strike. This one isn't polite. This one wants you dead. You grunt duck and drive your shoulder forward. It connects. The man stumbles. You kick out, not elegant, not honorable, but effective. He falls groaning, and you keep moving. Every few seconds, you glance behind, half expecting your first opponent to return. He doesn't. You start to notice the faces again. Some are angry. Some are terrified. Some are just blank, caught in a trance of repetition, swing and block. A few have tears tracking through the dirt on their cheeks. A few are laughing, not with joy, but with that manic edge people get when their minds are cracking at the seams. And every so often, you lock eyes with someone and see yourself. Not literally, of course, but the same wide stare, the same disbelief, the same desperate hope that this isn't how it ends. You swing at someone, miss. They swing, miss too. You both grunt and move on. There are no duels here, only accidents. A man you recognize from camp is on his knees trying to pull a boot off a body. You don't ask why. Maybe the body doesn't need it anymore. Maybe the living do. You pause briefly behind a cart, half sunk in the mud. Your arms ache. Your legs feel like cooked barley. Your mouth is dry. You lean your head back and close your eyes for 2 breaths. Just 2. When you open them, someone's charging straight at you. You dodge barely. Your sword catches their shoulder. They yelp, spin, and run. You don't follow. Instead, you look around as if your first opponent might appear again. Maybe wave. Maybe nod. Maybe finish what you started. But he's gone. Just another ghost in the fog. Somewhere along the line, your boots stopped mattering. You've been ankle deep in muck for so long that your legs are numb. Your socks feel like pudding. And you're not entirely sure your left boot is still attached. It might have dissolved or floated away. Either way, you're slogging forward inch by inch like a very determined swamp creature. The stench rises again, sharp, sour, unmistakably human. It clings to your tongue. It's not just mud now, it's blood. You realize it's all mixed together in a grim, medieval cocktail churned earth, sweat, iron, and fear. Somewhere in there is the faint scent of onions, which makes it worse. A scream pierces the haze. Not a war cry, not a barked command, just raw primal terror. You snap your head around and see a figure on their knees, clutching a blood-soaked thigh, howling for someone. Mother, maybe. Or Matthew. You can't tell. Either way, it cuts through you sharper than any blade. You want to help. You really do. But you don't. Not out of cruelty, out of preservation. You step around him because if you stop, you might not start again. And just ahead, someone slips in a particularly bad patch of mud, landing with a wet splat. His helmet falls off. He gropes for it blindly, only to have it kicked 3 feet away by another soldier who doesn't even notice. You lurch forward to grab it for him, because maybe you need to do one good thing today, but a shrill whistle yanks your attention elsewhere. A fresh wave of bodies surges past. One clips your shoulder. Another knocks the wind from your lungs. You cough double over and retch. Nothing comes up, but the gagging lingers. You're not sure if it's from exertion or the smell. You glance at your sword. The edge is nicked. The hilt is slick with grime. The tip is bent. You can't tell whether it's still a weapon or just a pointy excuse to survive. Your shield's long gone, maybe lost in the push. Maybe you dropped it back when your fingers stopped working properly. You don't remember. Your arms are jelly. Your wrists feel like they've been grinding gravel. You look down and see your reflection distorted in a puddle of red and brown and something greenish you hope is moss. You don't look like a soldier. You look like a wet sack of regret. Historians still argue whether morale or exhaustion broke medieval fighters first. Right now, you're willing to bet on both. Then you trip over something soft. It's a body, young, pale, eyes open staring up at nothing, one shoe missing. You want to look away, but your gaze is glued to his expression, not fear, just surprise. Like he never believed he'd actually die here. Like he thought this would be someone else's fate. You move again, because standing still is worse. A nearby knight, real armor, the whole polished thing, is slumped against a tree visor, up face streaked with tears. You think about asking if he's all right. Then you realize he's singing softly to himself. A lullaby. You don't interrupt. You round a clump of brambles and find a group huddled near a fallen cart. Not fighting, just sitting. Some sharpening blades, others sharing a canteen, one darning a sock. You blink. For a second it feels like a picnic. A truly terrible picnic, but still. You almost stop and join them. Almost. But then a cry goes up from the left. Sharp, urgent. Push. You're not sure why, but your feet start moving that way. Toward the shout. Toward the noise. Toward the next patch of chaos. Your thighs burn. Your back is wet and cold and hot all at once. A fly lands on your cheek, and you don't even bother to brush it off. You've stopped thinking. It's just motion now. Just keep going. You almost turn and run. Not out of cowardice, at least not entirely, but because for a brief, blistering moment, you think the line has broken. It feels like everyone is fleeing. Dust and sweat and hoarse voices swirl around you, and your mind screams, "This is it." You start to pivot. But then beep-wee-hoom, a horn sounds. A long, deep note that doesn't sound scared. It sounds decisive. You freeze mid-turn, and something shifts, not just the noise or the momentum, but the very feel of the air. It's as if someone pulled a string somewhere, and now all the pieces are falling into place. You catch a glimpse of a banner rising from behind a wagon, mud-caked, but still flying. A new cluster of troops surges forward, shouting in a rhythm that somehow makes sense, and you idiotically shout with them. You're shouting something like "forward" or "again," or possibly just "yes." The words don't matter. What matters is that you believe for the first time today that you might live. You push ahead. Your sword arm is sluggish. Your feet are blocks of wood, but your heart is thumping out a rhythm. Your body still wants to follow. A captain, blood smeared across his bald scalp, bellows something unintelligible, and waves you onward. You go. Why not? You're already here. The resistance thins. You feel it more than see it. Less force meeting your blade. Fewer blows crashing into your arms. More space between enemies. More of your people pushing through. Suddenly, the enemy isn't pressing, they're faltering. Historians still argue whether most battles were won through tactics or timing. Right now, it feels like someone finally rolled the right dice. The knight you saw crying earlier. He's standing now, covered in mud, face streaked with something you hope is just dirt. He lifts his sword and lets out a howl that makes your ribs hum. He charges forward and you follow. Your legs are working again. Sort of. Enough to keep you upright. You pass bodies, so many bodies. Some groaning, others still. You try not to look at the faces, but one catches your eye. A man you traded bread crusts with this morning. Eyes closed, one boot missing. Again with the missing boots. You keep moving. You catch up to a cluster of soldiers pressing into a ditch where the enemy's trying to regroup. It's a mess of elbows, tangled weapons, and shouted curses. You dive in, swinging more from instinct than aim. Your sword bites into someone's arm. They yelp and vanish backward. You get hit across the back by a club, or stick, or branch, whatever it was. It hurts, but you're past the point of caring. It's working, somehow. You're pushing them back. You hear someone yell, "We've got them." Then another. They're turning. And then, sweet mercy, you see it. A break in their line. A genuine, full-blown, confused retreat. You want to collapse from relief. Instead, you stagger forward with the others chasing them just far enough to make it real. Their backs are to you. Some have dropped shields. A few have even tossed off their helmets as they run. Light is winning today. You don't cheer. You can't. You're too busy sucking air through your teeth, too tired to make sound. But you smile a strange, crooked, grim smile that feels foreign on your blood-flecked face. And then, almost cruelly, the fighting stops. Not all at once. Not neatly. But gradually, like rain tapering off. A few men still yell. Some still fight, unaware it's over. But most just stop. Weapons lower. Knees give way. You watch as a man sets down his axe and simply sits in the mud, staring at nothing. The horn blows again, short-clipped final. You drop your sword. Not throw, just drop. Your fingers uncurl on their own. You've survived. You won. Maybe. It's quiet. Not the kind of quiet you'd expect peaceful soothing, but the eerie hollow kind. Like the world forgot how to make noise. After the thunder of battle, the silence lands heavy on your shoulders, making the ringing in your ears feel louder than ever. You look around and realize you can hear birds again. Not singing, just fluttering somewhere in the trees, beyond the field, as if they've been waiting for their cue. A low groan pulls your eyes to the ground. A man lies curled in a patch of flattened grass, hand pressed to his ribs, murmuring something that might be a prayer or a recipe. His breath fogs slightly in the cooling air. You don't stop to help. Not yet. You're not ready to kneel again. Your legs shake. Your arms feel like sacks of wet grain. You sit down, or rather fall backward, and the mud doesn't even feel cold anymore. Your body's given up on temperature. All around you, figures begin to stir. Some stand, some crawl. Others just lie still, blinking at the sky, as if trying to remember how they got here. Your eyes land on your sword, lying a few feet away, caked in grime, bent at the tip, like a wilted flower. You don't move to retrieve it. You're not sure you ever want to hold it again. The air smells different now, less of sweat and fear, more of iron and wet soil. You'd forgotten what actual air smelled like. Someone nearby gags, then vomits. No one flinches. Everyone's too tired to care. In the near distance, a dog trots past. You have no idea where it came from or who it belongs to. It sniffs at a body, sneezes, then pads off toward a cooking fire that someone started among the wreckage. You lie back. The sky is streaked with clouds, faint blue above the tree line, golden around the edges. You're still wearing your helmet, and it fogs again with each breath. You lift it off slowly, painfully, and set it beside you. The breeze on your face feels like the softest thing you've ever known. A soldier limps past, dragging a broken spear. He nods at you. You nod back. Nothing is said. Nothing needs to be. Somewhere nearby, someone starts humming. A lullaby. The same one you heard earlier. You wonder if it's the night. You wonder if he's still standing. You roll onto your side, groaning. Your back twinges in protest. There's a sharp rock under your hip, but you don't move. You just stare at the field. It's littered now, not just with bodies, but with shields, gloves, feathers, shattered weapons, and the occasional slice of bread. You spot a boot hanging from a tree branch. How it got there, you'll never know. A pair of squires begin walking among the fallen, searching for survivors. One carries a water skin. The other has a short stick he taps shoulders with. Some people flinch. Others don't move at all. Historians still argue whether medieval battles ended with organized retreat or slow collapse. This feels like both. Your lips are chapped. You lick them. They taste of sweat and old onions. You hear someone crying softly behind you. Not a sob, just a steady trickle of sound, like a leaky pipe in a monastery. A medic appears with a pouch of herbs and a face like burnt toast. He glances at you, shrugs, and moves on. Apparently, you're not dying enough to warrant attention. You take it as a compliment. The sun finally breaks through, casting golden light across the mess. It makes the mud sparkle in a way that almost looks beautiful. Almost. A crow lands on a nearby spear, cocks its head, and eyes you with mild interest. You stare back. It hops once, then takes off with a flap that makes you flinch. You lie there a while longer, because the battle may be over. But you're still catching up. The battle ends, but the real horror begins. You're handed a job. Not a medal, not a hot meal, not a fresh pair of socks. A job. Specifically, help with the cleanup. No one says what that means, but you figure it out quickly. You're given a rough linen cloth, a rope, and a look that says don't ask questions. And so you start wading back into the same mud. The same field, but now with a different kind of weight. The fighting is done. But the war, still very much underfoot. The first thing you're told to do is check for breathing. That's it. Nothing heroic. Just kneel beside bodies and listen. If they're alive, shout. If they're not, move on. You kneel. A lot. Most are cold. Some are warm, but still. One jolts awake as you reach out and grabs your wrist with surprising strength. His eyes are wild, unfocused. He mutters something about chickens. You gently free yourself and call for the medic. They're busy. Of course. One man nearby is alive, but groaning with every breath. A spear shaft has gone clean through his side. He stares up at the sky with a look that says he's counting stars in the daylight. A priest crouches beside him, whispering. You move along. Eventually, you're asked to help sort. Not the wounded, the dead. You're not ready for that, but no one is. You grip the rope, loop it under an arm or around a chest, and drag. Slowly, carefully, respectfully at first, then less so. It's not callousness, it's survival. Your arms are jelly, your back a scream of knots. You stop noticing names, faces. You stop wondering who they were, what they liked, whether they sang songs on the march. You just pull. You create piles. It's macabre, yes, but necessary. Nobles to the side, commoners in rows, enemies, wherever there's space. Someone says they'll burn the bodies. Someone else says bury. A third mutters something about plague. Historians still argue whether medieval armies made room for ritual or rushed through cleanup to escape rot and disease. Judging by the urgency here, the answer leans heavily toward get it done. Your hands cramp after the fourth trip. You keep going. You find one boy who's smiling. Not in peace, more like he died mid-laugh. You wonder what was funny. Another has one boot off and a potato clutched in his hand. You can't explain it. You stop at midday for water and a stale crust of bread. Someone passes a flask. You sip. It burns, which is good. It cuts through the smell. Nothing else does. Later, you're told to search the bodies. Loot technically, but they call it collection of valuables. You find coins mostly, small ones, amulets, bits of ribbon. One has a note tucked into his glove. You don't read it. You don't want to know. A soldier finds a silver comb and pockets it. Another takes a ring, shrugs and mutters, he won't miss it. No one scolds them. You find a broken lute. No body nearby, just the lute. You wonder who carried it into battle. What songs it played. You keep moving. Eventually, the priest reappears and starts marking brows with ash. You don't ask the purpose. You just notice that some heads are bowed and others have been propped up by rocks. You decide not to question it. Toward the end, you're sent to the far edge of the field where the last of the fallen lie tangled in bramble. You cut through the branches, lift limbs, clear space. You find one man curled around a leather pouch. Inside, a thimble, a lock of hair, and a smooth stone. You put the pouch back. You don't know why. It just feels right. When you finally return to camp, the fire is going again. Someone has boiled water. Someone else is passing out broth. You accept a bowl, sit down, and immediately spill half of it on your sleeve. You don't even react. You're too tired, too full of images you'll never forget, too aware that in some twisted way, this was the easy part. Because tomorrow, they'll send you somewhere new, and it will all begin again. And when the fighting stops, the stories begin. The fire crackles low, throwing soft shadows onto the ragged canvas of the nearest tent. Around it, men gather, not in ranks, not in squads, but in a loose, weary circle of survivors. You're there too, nursing a dented cup of something warm and suspiciously thin. It might be wine, or broth, or yesterday's bathwater. No one knows. No one cares. The silence stretches for a while, thick and oddly comforting. Then someone clears their throat. You see that knight with the green plume, a voice says, rough nasal, maybe missing a tooth or three. Took down 5 men? 5. With a broken halberd and a soup pot lid. Someone snorts. Another replies, I saw him trip over his own horse and land in a trench. A ripple of laughter circles the fire, Dre cracked barely there, but genuine. And just like that, the stories begin. Every one of them gets taller with the telling. The man who fended off 3 attackers with a ladle. The archer who nailed a charging rider from 80 yards while blindfolded. The squire who sprinted across the field carrying 3 shields and a goat. You know none of it is true, or at least not all of it. But you let it wash over you, smile creeping across your tired face. This is the part of battle no one writes down. The part where men try to stitch the day back together, using jokes and exaggeration. Where horror softens into humor and shame transforms into strange little triumphs. A younger soldier, no more than 17, describes how he got separated and spent half an hour hiding in a bush, only to find out it was on the wrong side of the field the entire time. You raise your cup to him. Excellent scouting, you say. He bows dramatically. Someone farts, loudly. There's a pause, then a full 10 seconds of ragged, wheezing laughter. It feels good. You notice the man beside you has removed his boots. His feet look like boiled meat. He doesn't seem to mind. Didn't even notice the blister, he says. Not until it started talking. Someone offers to trade a spoon for a clean sock. The offer is considered. You hear one soldier trying to rhyme a ballad on the spot. O noble John of Springley, who stabbed the Duke of Dingley. He fails, miserably, but everyone claps anyway. Historians still argue whether these tales served as morale-boosting tools or simply as a way to forget. You think it's both, because right now, no one's talking about the bodies, or the screams, or the boy who didn't get up. They're talking about a chicken that ran through the field wearing a helmet. You sip your cup again. Still no idea what's in it. Someone starts carving a stick into the shape of a dog. Another is trying to roast something he insists is an onion, but smells suspiciously like a turnip's angry cousin. Your mind drifts back to the moment in the field, your almost duel, your jammed sword, the boot in the tree. You don't share those stories. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because tonight, you're not a warrior. You're a storyteller. Or at least you're listening like one. The moon rises slowly, casting pale light across the camp. You lie back, arms folded behind your head, and stare up at it. Someone murmurs, still alive. Another answers, for now. And then softly, the first voice says, that's enough. For now, it is. You're walking. Not marching. Not striding with purpose. Just walking. The battle's over. The stories have faded, and now it's time to go home, or at least wherever home currently is. Your legs ache with every step, knees clicking like old hinges. Your armor is packed onto a cart, or tossed into a ditch, or simply abandoned. You haven't looked back. The road stretches ahead long and rutted. Fields blur by on either side, green and gold under a sluggish sun. It should be beautiful. Maybe it is, but all you can think about is the sharp pebble in your left boot and whether your pinky toe is still attached. You limp. Everyone limps. Some are bandaged. Others carry improvised crutches. One man has tied a stick to his leg with strips of jerkin and insists it's better than new. Another laughs every time he breathes, though no one's sure if it's the cracked rib or just madness. And then there's the lice. You scratch. Others scratch. There's a group of 3 walking behind you who've turned it into a contest. Whoever finds the biggest one gets half a dried pear. You don't want to play, but you might later. Your belly grumbles, again. You ate something resembling soup last night, but it could have been mop water. A man ahead of you swears he saw a turnip field and tried to break off. He came back with a black eye and half a beet. You're not sure who punched him, the farmer or the beet. A wagon creaks past, pulled by the world's most exhausted donkey. On the back, supplies, cracked shields, and 2 men playing dice. One shouts double sixes, and the other groans, like it's the worst news imaginable. You don't even notice the smell anymore. Not really. Your nose gave up somewhere between the 4th day of sweat and the 3rd pit of rotting armor. The sun climbs higher. Your shirt sticks to your back. A fly dances near your ear. You swat, miss, swat again, miss again. The fly wins. You pause by a stream. Everyone does. Some drink. Others strip off boots and soak feet. One man dunks his head and lets out a yowl like he's been reborn. You follow suit. The water is freezing. It's also glorious. You look down and realize your trousers are ripped at the knee. You don't remember how. You also don't care. Modesty was lost somewhere back near the 2nd latrine trench. Someone offers you a bit of bread. It's hard enough to chip a tooth. You eat it anyway. You chew slowly, thoughtfully. It tastes like victory, or at least like not dying. You talk less now. Everyone does. The stories were for last night. Today is about putting one foot in front of the other, ignoring the ache in your joints, and the way your toenail might be detaching. You don't look. You just walk. Historians still argue whether soldiers truly returned home or simply drifted toward whatever place would take them. You're starting to understand why. Home isn't always a destination. Sometimes it's a habit. The road dips. A child waves from a cottage door. You wave back weakly, your hands swollen from gripping your sword. You think about tossing the sword, but something inside won't let you. The group thins as villages appear. People peel off. That's my uncle's mill, one says. My cousin's orchard, says another. Some leave without a word, turning down side paths or ducking into woods. You keep going. You're not sure where you'll stop. You just know that for now you're still walking, still here, still alive. And maybe, just maybe that's enough. Years pass. You don't notice at first time creeps like that. One day, you're scrubbing mud from your knees behind a tavern, and the next you're leaning on a cane with more stories than teeth. The battle fades, blurs, becomes something you dust off now and then. When a fire's burning low, and the beer's been flowing long enough to melt your better judgment. You never became a hero. There was no medal, no statue, just a limp in your left leg, and a shoulder that clicks every time it rains. A reminder that yes, Once upon a time, you swung a blade at someone you never met for reasons you barely understood. You don't tell the truth when you talk about it. Not all of it. You leave out the part where you cried under a wagon or where you nearly stabbed a man in the foot because you were dizzy from skipping breakfast. You don't mention the stench or the lice or how your biggest victory was not wetting yourself before the first horn. Instead, you focus on the parts memory has polished smooth. The way the sun glinted off the captain's helmet before he rode straight into a tree. The time your sword actually hit something and didn't bounce off like a spoon against a pumpkin. How your friend Alain said duck and then ducked himself, leaving you to take the blow on your shield. You both laughed for days about that. That's how you remember it. Not the pain, the stories. Historians still argue whether memory shapes history or vice versa. You don't argue. You just tell it like it feels now, not like it was. Because something strange happens with time. You forget the cold. You forget the hunger. You even forget how your hand shook when it was all over. What remains is the noise, the rush, the wild, ridiculous rhythm of it all. You start to believe you were brave, that you mattered, that in some ridiculous way you helped. And so when a boy at the village fire asks, "Did you really fight in the battle?" you nod. Maybe you even puff your chest a little. "Was it scary?" he asks. You pause, then smile. Of course it was. But you tell him about the soup pot shield, the chicken in the helmet, the boot in the tree. You leave out the rest. He laughs. You laugh. The fire crackles. And for a moment, just a moment, the limp doesn't matter. You were there. And that's enough. And now, as the fire dies down and the night stretches long and soft around you, you close your eyes and let the sounds of that long ago battlefield fade into a gentler kind of silence. No more clashing metal, no more shouting or galloping hooves, just the quiet rustle of wind through the grass and the steady rhythm of your own breath, warm and slow. The armor's gone, the mud washed away. Your hands are clean again, resting lightly by your sides. Fingers no longer curled in fear or fatigue. The aches have eased, the memories softened. All that's left is the gentle hum of distant fields, peaceful now bathed in moonlight and calm. You picture the road you walked back from the mud, the silence, the weight of survival, not unchanged, but still breathing. Sleep wraps around you like old wool, and somewhere nearby, a fire crackles. Another soldier turns over. The next battle hasn't come yet, but you're not alone. Maybe you're just a spearman from a soggy village. Maybe you've got 2 teeth, a patchy beard, and calluses so deep they have their own weather systems. Either way, tonight you're camping out with your unit on the eve of battle. The fire is low, barely more than a smolder. The cold has crept in like a thief, biting through the wool and leather of your cloak. You're trying to sleep, but sleep is a luxury, not a given. The ground beneath you is hard and damp, and your bedroll smells like old onions and sheep. Every time you close your eyes, there's a tickle behind your ears. Lice again? You scratch half-consciously, muttering something that sounds like a prayer and a curse wrapped together. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world you all are drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The men around you shift in their makeshift bedding. Some mumble in their sleep, twitching as if already in battle. Others stare wide-eyed at the moon, their thoughts heavier than their armor. A few whisper in Latin, reciting familiar psalms with cracked lips. You try not to listen, because that's their business, their dread. Yours is pounding just as loudly, just more quietly. Sleep for most here is not restful. Even if fear didn't curl around your gut like a hungry snake, there's the wind, sharp and relentless, dragging smoke and ash and memory across your nose. There's the wetness seeping in from the ground, threatening to turn your toes black with rot. There's the rats scratching nearby, unnervingly bold, as if they know something you don't. And then the thoughts. That's the real enemy tonight. Not the French, or the Saxons, or whatever unlucky souls are across the field. No, it's the echoes of mistakes, the faces of boys you used to know, now half ghost, half guilt. It's the absurdity of dying over a patch of dirt no one will remember in a year. It's wondering if that aching foot means infection, and whether you'll die, not from an arrow, but from your own swollen flesh. You roll over. A stone jabs your ribs. You mutter again. There's one guy who's asleep, truly asleep. You can hear the whistle of his nose and the occasional contented grunt. You hate him a little, not because he's lucky, but because you wonder what corner of his mind he's managed to lock all this away in. Or maybe he's just empty, used up. Sleep comes easier when you've got nothing left rattling around in your skull. One of the older soldiers near the fire is plucking lice from his tunic, snapping them between his nails with the practiced ease of a man who's done this too many times. He talks to no one, in particular, voice low. Says something about his wife's soup. Then he chuckles like it's a joke, but you're not sure what part was funny. Historians still argue whether medieval soldiers were truly aware of the scale of the battles they entered, or if it was all just another job, swing sword, don't die. You wonder yourself, lying there half frozen, trying not to let your bladder go. How much do any of you really know? You've heard the name of the noble in charge, maybe. You've been promised coin, or maybe loot. But no one gave you a map. No one explained why the village 20 miles from yours has suddenly become the enemy. Eventually, you find a shallow rhythm in the discomfort. Not quite sleep, but something drowsy and hovering. And just as your mind starts to wander, somewhere quieter, a trumpet sounds far off. Not the call to arms, not yet, just a reminder, a warning. Tomorrow, you'll bleed or you won't. Tomorrow, some of you will scream, and some of you won't have time. But tonight, you lie here in the liminal quiet, tangled in wool, dread, and lice. And just maybe you'll sleep, but don't count on it. The fire's nearly gone now, just an ember belly breathing beneath the ash. You can't tell who's awake anymore, and who's simply giving up on sleep. Doesn't matter. The darkness has shifted less the absence of light, more the presence of thoughts too heavy to ignore. Someone whispers. You turn your head slowly. two men are talking just beyond the edge of firelight. Their faces are turned away, but their words drift back like smoke. It's not strategy. It's not war. It's small things. One says he misses his dog. The other talks about a daughter he's never seen born just before he was conscripted. You recognize that kind of talk, not meant for comfort, but for confession. In the dark, with the weight of 100 what-ifs hanging overhead, people say things they never would by daylight. Not because they're brave, but because night softens the edges of shame. It becomes a ritual, one last moment of honesty, before the mask of battle clamps back on. You roll closer just enough to hear without seeming nosy. The younger one says almost too casually that he stole a loaf of bread once from a priest. He laughs, but it's dry, more like sand than mirth. The older one doesn't judge, just nods, then offers up his own. He once held his best friend down so others wouldn't see him crying before a skirmish. Not for his sake, he mutters, for mine. A third voice chimes in from the dark. I kissed my brother's wife. She kissed me back. There's a pause, then a ripple of exhausted laughter, more release than amusement. It's not funny, but in the moment it is. The secrets tumble out. Little sins regret stupid things that don't matter now, but still live under the skin. They come up like steam from hot stones bleeding into the night air. Historians still argue whether this kind of emotional camaraderie was widespread among medieval soldiers, or if it's a romantic notion imposed by modern minds. But even you lying there know something real is happening. Men who barely know each other's last names are bonding through shared dread. The confessions are a way to tether themselves to something human just before they might be asked to become something else entirely. Someone starts to hum, a low, tuneless thing. You recognize the rhythm, an old hymn maybe, but not the words. Another joins in, then a third. It doesn't become a song, not really. More a sound to fill the spaces between regrets. A man with a crooked nose gets up and walks toward the edge of camp. He kneels, not dramatically, just gently. Says a prayer you can't quite hear. His hands tremble slightly. When he stands, he wipes them on his tunic, like he's finished a chore. No one says anything. You think about what you'd say if it were your turn to speak. Something light, maybe. I cheated at dice. Something harmless. But your mind flickers to darker places. Things you'd never voice out loud even now. And then someone says, if I don't come back, tell my mother I wasn't scared. No one answers right away. Then another voice replies, lie to mine too. It's so quiet after that. Not silent. The woods are never truly silent, but still. You feel the weight of their words hanging in the air, like dew on grass, small, heavy glinting. The fire cracks softly. Someone shifts. A cough is muffled into a cloak, and the night impossibly deepens. These campfire confessions aren't about drama or redemption. They're about anchoring yourself for just a moment before the world becomes noise and fury. A way to say, I was here. I was human. I had thoughts and fears and regrets just like you. And maybe, just maybe, someone will remember that. By now, the horizon is smudging into a lighter gray, that indistinct hour where night hasn't left. But morning is already nosing in like an uninvited guest. Your limbs ache from the cold and the stillness, and your stomach gives a low, accusatory growl. No one's moving yet, but everyone's awake. You can feel it, the collective holding of breath before the inevitable. This is the hour of quiet prayers. It's not a church service. There are no robes, no incense, just soldiers fumbling through whispered rituals and half-remembered blessings. Some cross themselves in Latin. Others murmur things in local dialects, twisting bits of folklore and saints' names into makeshift shields. You watch a man kiss a wooden charm he wears around his neck. It looks like a carving of Saint Sebastian, patron of archers, and those trying not to get perforated. But here's the strange thing. Most of them aren't praying to win. They're praying to die quickly. If it must happen, and it always might, then let it be fast. Not the slow death of gut wounds and flies. Not crushed ribs or infection or being trampled by a retreating horse. No one wants to be the one screaming for hours while the priests are off somewhere blessing flags. You hear a muttered line, "If I fall, let it be clean." You can't help but say your own version low and instinctive. It's not even a real prayer. More a bargain. Not the face you whisper. Please, not the face. Historians still argue whether this fatalistic streak was learned or instinctual. Did soldiers truly believe in divine fate, or was this just the only way to cope? Either way, the contradiction is clear. You pray to survive, but also for death. It's not contradictory in your head, though. It's a layered hope. Maybe I'll live, but if I don't, then make it merciful. Nearby, a man with soot on his cheeks is chanting, not loudly, but rhythmically. He's from a mountain region far from yours, and his gods probably don't answer the same mail. But the look in his eyes is the same tired, focused, quietly terrified. Someone offers the group a dried root to chew. Keeps the fear down, he claims. It tastes like dirt and bitterness, but you chew it anyway. You'd eat your own boots if someone said it might make your heart stop pounding. There's an odd kind of peace in the moment. Not because anyone feels better, but because the fear is finally named. Exhaled, shared. You watch as one soldier unfolds a tiny cloth from his pouch and lays it carefully on the ground. On it, a few breadcrumbs and a smear of oil. He dips his fingers in, reverently presses them to his lips. It's not communion. It's memory. Maybe it reminds him of home. Maybe of a meal he shared before his first battle. Maybe it's the last normal thing he owns. Some soldiers just stare up at the sky, not praying, not thinking, just watching. You do the same for a moment. The stars are fading, and with them any illusion of safety. The battlefield is out there waiting, hidden beyond the mist. Someone sneezes. Another curses softly at the ache in his back. Life creeps in through the fear, always. One young man, you think his name is Henrik, starts shaking. Not violently, just a quiet tremble in his shoulders. His eyes are wide and unfocused. No one teases him. No one mocks. A grizzled veteran just reaches over and rests a hand on his shoulder, like he's holding the boy's soul in place. You realize your fingers have gone numb, not from cold, but from clenching. You force them to relax, flexing slowly, as if preparing them to grip something heavier than a prayer. The sun's light begins to reach the tops of the trees, now thin and gold. A cruel color, you think. Too warm for what's coming. Time to stand. Time to fight. You say one last silent plea, not to God. Exactly, but to something. The sky, the dirt, your own ancestors. Let me come back, or let it be fast. They start with jokes. You're barely on your feet, armor creaking, and joints protesting when the first jab lands. Hope your sword's sharper than your breath. Someone snorts, elbowing a fellow infantryman. Another mutters, "If I die, tell my wife I said hi to her sister first." A ripple of chuckles follows, thin and brittle as ice. You smile because it's expected. Because not smiling would be weirder. The thing is, it's not that anyone finds this funny. It's survival. Not the stabbing kind, emotional survival. Joking before a battle is like patching a hole in a boat with bread crusts. It won't hold, but it gives you something to do with your hands. You find yourself chiming in, too. Something about the latrines being worse than the enemy. It's not original, but it gets a few nods. Good enough. Everyone's putting on the same show anyway. Historians still argue whether this pre-battle humor was a common form of psychological defense or simply the only form of camaraderie soldiers could afford. You don't know the academic term. You just know that laughing makes the shaking feel smaller. The veteran with the chipped teeth walks by, announcing, "Any man who dies with clean breeches is a liar." That gets a real laugh, not because it's new, but because it's true. Every one of you is nervous enough to soil your linen. Some already have. Nearby, a group is trying to sing. It's a terrible rendition of a tavern song, all off-key, howling, and lyrics that change every verse. You join the chorus anyway, and I'll drink no more for the mead's all sour. Someone adds a line about kissing a sheep, and the verse collapses into giggles. The youngest soldier, a boy with peach fuzz and big dreams, asks if he looks heroic. Someone hands him a feathered hat. Now you look ready to be stabbed with style. Even the officers don't interfere. They know. They were once you. There's a strange safety in this bravado. Not real safety, but enough to keep your limbs moving. The sword feels less heavy when your lips are moving, even if it's nonsense. You're performing for each other like a traveling troupe with only one-act men, about to die pretending they're not. One man starts strutting like a rooster, mimicking the noble who gave you all a pep talk yesterday. For glory, he crows. For country. Someone else adds, for whatever's in that mystery stew. The laughter spikes again, then ebbs. Too fast. It always does. Because beneath it all, you're afraid. Not just of pain, of being seen afraid. You tighten the straps on your gear with exaggerated confidence. Puff out your chest. Crack a joke about being too handsome to die. No one calls you on it. They're doing the same. There's a sudden clang, someone dropping a helmet, and everyone jumps. The illusion breaks for a heartbeat. But someone quips enemies early, and the laughter stitches the moment back together. You glance at the man beside you. He's chewing a sprig of something green. "Parsley," he says, answering your look. Keeps the death off your breath. You grin. It's nonsense, but you admire the effort. Even animals bluff when cornered. What you're doing isn't new. It's ancient. A puffed chest, a sharp bark, a flash of teeth. Laughter is a kind of growl, a show of strength, even if it's hollow. You're not brave, not really. But for these few moments, wrapped in bad jokes and worse singing, you can pretend. You're not trembling, you're chuckling. That makes all the difference. And when the horn finally sounds short-clipped, unmistakable, you drop the act with grace, just like everyone else. Masks off, weapons up. The jokes have done their job. You're ready to walk towards something that terrifies you. And maybe, just maybe, you'll make someone laugh again tomorrow. The order comes down from someone on a horse, someone who will probably stay on that horse for most of the day, far from the blood and the screaming. It's not a dramatic command, just a nod, a gesture, a muttered, "Form up." And just like that, the joking stops. You fall into rank, beside men you've eaten, with complained, with nearly frozen beside. But now, their faces, not names. Blank, or hardened, or twisted in strange ways, by thoughts they aren't saying out loud. Then comes the first moral twinge, a whisper in your chest. What are we really doing here? The field ahead isn't empty. There's movement in the mist. Somewhere out there are men just like you, tired, scared, praying to gods with similar names. But someone pointed said, those are the enemy, and now your job is to kill them before they kill you. There's a part of you that doesn't want to move, not because of fear, but because of doubt. Not every command feels righteous. Not every fight feels necessary. But orders are orders, and hesitation is dangerous. Not just to you, but to the man beside you, counting on your blade being in the right place at the right time. You remember the story of the baker's son in the last campaign. Refused to torch a barn. Said there were still animals inside, maybe people too. He didn't make it to the next morning. The official version said he fell in battle. Everyone knew better. Historians still argue whether medieval soldiers had true agency or if they were cogs in a feudal machine too vast to resist. You know the answer in your bones. You do have a choice. Just not one you can live with either way. The unit's marching now. Your boots move on instinct, each step a betrayal of something deep inside. You try not to think about who you're walking toward. The orders today are clear. No quarter. Take the hill. Burn the supply carts, leave no survivors among the armed. That last bit, among the armed, is a loophole you've seen stretched too far before. There will be people who look like soldiers but aren't. Scared boys with pitchforks, old men in rusted mail. You've seen one of your comrades kill a man holding nothing but a cooking pot. And worse, you didn't stop him. That memory returns now unbidden. You try to blink it away, but it lingers like smoke. You told yourself it was the chaos of battle. You told yourself it wasn't your place. You told yourself a lot of things. And maybe tomorrow, you'll tell someone else that same story, but with different words. Words that make it sound better, braver, cleaner. Ahead, someone shouts. A flag is raised. The engagement is close now. You grip your weapon tighter, as if that could ground you, anchor you to something other than confusion. You remind yourself that this isn't personal, that the man you'll face doesn't know. You hasn't wronged you. But that only makes it worse. Killing a stranger is easier to excuse, harder to justify. The man to your left mutters a prayer. The man to your right adjusts his grip and mutters about dinner. You say nothing, because the thought echoing in your skull is too dangerous to speak aloud. What if the real enemy isn't out there? What if it's the command that sent us? You march on. The line slows. Not because you've reached the enemy, no, not yet, but because something thick has settled over the unit, a silence deeper than the one that blanketed the camp hours ago. Heavier, stickier. It's the moment of indecision, the breath before the plunge. You glance around. Every man wears the same expression, even if they don't realize it. A mask of tension hiding the storm underneath. This is when it happens, the thought you don't want, the one that flickers into your mind like a spark catching dry thatch. What if I run? Your feet twitch just slightly. You don't move, of course not, but part of your body is already calculating how far to the tree line. How fast could I drop my gear and bolt? Who might follow? Who might see? You're not the only one. There's always one or two who glance sideways more than forward, whose breathing sharpens too early. You can tell. You recognize it because it's the same turmoil boiling under your skin. Historians still argue whether desertion in medieval armies was as prevalent as feared, or if most soldiers simply lacked the opportunity. But opportunity or not, the desire is real. You can feel it in your bones like a second heartbeat. The problem is shame. You don't fear being wounded as much as you fear being seen as weak. Cowardice isn't just a failing here. It's a stain, permanent and unwashed. If you flee and live, you'll still die in every tavern tale, every glance, every whisper. You'd rather be cut down charging forward than die slowly under the weight of disgrace. You remember a man named Thomas from your village. He came back from a skirmish 2 years ago early, alone. He claimed he got lost in the fog. The others never called him a coward, not outright. But no one stood beside him at the next muster. No one toasted him at feast days. The silence around his name was a sentence worse than exile. You don't want to be Tomas. Someone near you adjusts their grip, drops their sword, picks it up with fumbling fingers. You see it again, the brief flash in their eyes. The almost, the flicker of a man weighing his chances. Then a commander yells sharp and sudden. The line tightens. Movements become practiced, mechanical. Ritual protects you from thinking too hard. You straighten your shoulders, shift your stance. Pretend you're braver than you are. Because if anyone even suspects what passed through your mind, it's over. That kind of fear spreads. One man faltering is a danger to everyone. And so you don't just pretend to be fearless, you pretend to not even understand fear. That's the real performance. You look straight ahead, not because it helps, but because anything else feels too much like admitting the truth. There's a saying older soldiers repeat sometimes, usually with a smirk. The man who runs lives longer, but dies lonelier. You're starting to understand that now. The charge hasn't begun yet. You're still a dozen paces from whatever horror waits ahead. But this is where the real test happens. Not when the blades clash or the arrows fly, but here in the stillness. In the private moment when every instinct screams run and you answer with not yet. And maybe that's bravery. Or maybe it's just another kind of surrender. Either way, you stay. There's a sound, not loud, not sharp, but it cuts through you like a blade, a horn. Not a grand blast of glory, just a functional nasal blare. The signal. the kind that leaves no room for misinterpretation. This is it. The commanders bark their orders, but you hardly hear them. Your legs move because everyone else's do. Forward slow at first, then faster. The clank of armor, the thud of boots, these sounds surround you, swell inside your skull, sync up with your heartbeat. It's not a march anymore. It's a momentum, a rolling inevitability. And then, at some indistinct line across the field, something changes. The ground feels different under your feet. The air, too, thicker. Everything sharpens and blurs at the same time. You've passed the point of no return. Historians still debate exactly when a soldier entered battle. Was it at the first command or the first contact? You know now, it's neither. It's this moment. When your body commits to action, your mind can no longer stop. You raise your weapon, not in triumph, not with courage, but because you must. To not raise it would mean to break the line. And in that instant, the line feels sacred. Realer than the law, realer than prayer. You spot the enemy now, not clearly. Their shapes, motion, glints of steel. You're not thinking anymore. Your thoughts are fragments, flashes. Shield up. Watch the flank. Don't trip. A scream erupts somewhere to your right. You don't look, and then the lines meet. There is a horrible, indescribable sound, not of metal, not of voices, but of everything colliding. A crunch, a groan, a wetness you didn't expect. You swing or stab or maybe both. You don't know. Someone is yelling in your face. You don't know if it's you. Time fractures. There is blood, yours, someone else's. Doesn't matter. You slip in the mud. Catch yourself on a body. A sword scrapes past your hip, sparks off your buckle. A man lunges at you, eyes wide, teeth bared like an animal. You hit him, or someone does. He falls. You've crossed a threshold, and something inside you knows there's no way back. Even if you survive this moment, the version of you from an hour ago has been left behind, trampled. You lock eyes with another soldier. He's young, terrified. In a second, he's gone. Pulled under or knocked away. You'll never know which. And you keep moving. There's no order anymore. Only chaos masquerading as purpose. You duck under a flailing spear. You jab at a knee. Someone grabs your arm, you jerk free. Your ears ring with a frequency that feels personal, like a private scream looping endlessly. This is the snap, the break in the mental scaffolding that held you up. You're not acting, you're reacting. Pure instinct. Fight or die. Your mind recedes, becomes a whisper behind your eyes. You are motion and muscle and pain. The moment of no return isn't poetic. It's not cinematic. It's wet, loud, ugly. It's blood and spit and someone crying for their mother 2 feet away from you. You feel yourself grinning. Not because you're happy. It's just your face trying to stay attached to something human. Your legs are sore. Your wrist throbs. Your nose is bleeding. And the worst part is, you're getting used to it. This is who you are now. Not a farmer, not a husband, not even a soldier, just a weapon with legs. And the fight isn't even over. Everything is noise. Not the kind you hear exactly. More like a vibration in your bones. Screams, metal, thuds, the crunch of boots on mud mixed with bodies. It doesn't register as separate sounds anymore, just one overwhelming roar that presses against your chest. You're in the thick of it now, and nothing feels real. Your vision narrows literally. The world shrinks to a tight, shifting tunnel. The edges blur. Faces lose detail. It's like your eyes can't process anything but immediate danger. That's battle blindness. You know you're still moving, swinging, dodging, pushing forward, but your body feels detached. A machine following orders it no longer fully understands. Your mind has curled up somewhere deep inside, watching through a keyhole. Historians still argue whether this psychological narrowing was simply fear response, or if it was the mind's way of protecting itself from too much input. You don't care. You're just glad you don't have to look at everything. The sound shifts too, muffles, then sharpens again. You'll hear a scream, clear as a bell 1 second, then nothing at all the next. Like your ears are underwater, or broken. You trip, fall to a knee, mud splashes up your arm. Someone nearly tramples you. You shove them not out of anger, just survival. They don't look back. A flash of movement, a raised blade you barely manage to parry. It glances off your shield. Your arm goes numb for a moment. You bite your lip to stay grounded. It works, kind of. You feel something hot across your cheek. A cut. You're not sure. You keep moving. Everything is reduced to proximity. The man in front of you, the man behind. No grand tactics, no thoughts of glory, just targets and directions. Left. Duck. Push. Strike. Breathe. Tunnel vision makes the world manageable. Dangerous, but manageable. You stop noticing the banners, the terrain, the faces of the fallen. That's not callousness, it's focus. If you looked at it all, you'd freeze. A knight on horseback crashes past, shouting something that might be your language, or not. Doesn't matter. He's gone before you can care. His horse's hooves kick up a chunk of something fleshy. You don't look. You pass over a man lying on his back. Eyes open, lips moving. No sound. You step over him. You want to care, you do. But your brain files the moment away somewhere deep and unreachable. Someone grabs your shoulder. You twist and nearly stab them. It's one of yours. He says something, mouths a word. You nod even though you didn't hear. It feels important to pretend you did. You fought before, but never like this. Not with your senses trying to escape your body. You've become a tunnel, a narrow, flickering tube through which only immediate threats can pass. You know that later, if there is a later, you'll struggle to remember details, faces, voices, what you said, what you saw. But for now, that's mercy. The ground shakes. Or maybe it's just your legs. You're not sure anymore what's outside and what's inside. The line surges forward again, or maybe backward. Direction is meaningless now. A hand reaches out, slaps your back. Not hostile, just an anchor. You nod again. Keep moving, keep breathing. The fight hasn't ended. But you've entered the part where you're no longer afraid. Not because you've conquered your fear, but because you've stopped feeling anything at all. And then something inside you snaps. You don't notice it at first. It's not a grand moment, no thunderclap, no slow motion yell. Just a shift, a flicker behind the eyes. One moment you're defending surviving thinking like a man, and the next you're not. You lunge at a figure in front of you. You don't remember raising your weapon. You don't even feel the impact. Only that something is down, and you're already moving to the next. Your breathing changes deeper, faster, almost joyful. Not because you're happy, but because your body has found a rhythm that feels right. You're no longer afraid. You're not even really you anymore. This is the rage switch. It's not screaming fury. It's focus. Brutal, feral, unstoppable. Like some ancient beast has taken your place and left just enough of your mind behind to guide the claws. Historians still argue whether medieval soldiers experienced something akin to modern berserker states, or if this was simply adrenaline masking fear. You no longer care what they think. You're living proof that the line between man and monster is much thinner than anyone admits. You're shouting now. You think. Your throat is raw, but you don't remember using it. You don't hear words, just the rush of blood in your ears. You swing again and again. Your arms are heavy, but they don't stop. You're not just fighting, you're hunting. You catch yourself grinning. There's a man retreating, turning, trying to crawl away. You bring your boot down on something near him. You don't look to see what. Not out of cruelty, out of urgency. The need to keep moving, to keep destroying, to keep feeding the thing you've become. You're vaguely aware of your comrades around you. They're yelling too. Their movements have changed, more aggressive, less careful. The entire line feels different now, as if something dark and molten has spilled into it, transforming a group of frightened men into predators. You remember stories told in camp of soldiers going red, of losing themselves in the chaos? You always thought those were exaggerations. Now you realize they were understatements. You spot someone swinging wildly one of yours. His eyes are wild, his face blood-smeared and unrecognizable. You almost don't stop yourself from attacking him. Almost. There's a flash of steel near your shoulder. You twist. Parry strike low. You don't know if you killed them. You don't look. You're already turning. You slip, fall briefly into the mud, your hands sinking into something warm and soft. A body. You leap up with a snarl, not from fear, from rage at the interruption. This isn't strategy anymore. It's impulse reflex wrath. And the worst part, you feel powerful. You've never felt like this in your life. Not when planting crops. Not when laughing in taverns. Not even in past battles. This is something primal. Animal. You hate it. And yet you never want it to end. And maybe that's the most terrifying part. Because in this state, you'd do anything. Hit anyone. Cross any line. You're not thinking about who's right or wrong. Just about who's in the way. Later, this moment will haunt you. You'll remember flashes, things you said, things you saw in your own reflection. But for now, it doesn't matter. The rage switch has flipped. And until it flips back, there's only one command your body understands. Keep going. It ends before you're ready. Not because you want it to go on, but because your body has fully committed. It's found a rhythm in the storm, and the abrupt stillness feels like hitting a wall. The enemy breaks. Not everywhere, but enough. They retreat, scatter, die in place. The line buckles, then melts. Your arm is mid-swing when there's no one left to swing at. You stop only because the man beside you grabs your shoulder and yells something that sounds like, "They're gone, gone." You stand there, heaving, not from exhaustion, though it's there, but from the crash. The chemical come down. Your rage, your fury, your survival, high, it's draining fast, like a dam breaking inside your ribs. And then it hits, that feeling. You've heard the phrase blood rush before, usually in camp as a joke. Men boasting about kills about the thrill. Felt like a god, someone once said. You never believed him. Now you do. Because right now, standing among twisted bodies and steaming earth, you feel alive. Not just alive, but electric. Your veins hum. Your eyes sting. Every sound is too loud. Every breath tastes like metal and ash and something else, euphoria. It's terrifying. You look at your hands. They're shaking. Not from fear, but from too much everything. You feel like you could run 10 miles. Or collapse. Or scream. The others feel it too. You see it in their faces. Wide eyes. Blood-slick grins. Someone starts to laugh, a strange, high-cracking laugh that borders on madness. Another joins. It spreads like a sickness. Not joy. Just release. Historians still argue whether medieval soldiers experienced true combat euphoria, or if it was simply relief, misinterpreted as pleasure. But what you feel now isn't relief. It's something raw, unstable. Like your mind hasn't caught up with what your body just did. You take a step. Your knees nearly buckle. A man nearby is retching. Another is whispering prayers under his breath, over and over, the same line repeated like a lullaby. One clutches a medallion, kisses it, then throws it down. You don't ask why. You catch your breath. Try to wipe your face. Your hand comes back red. For a moment, your heart swells with something awful triumph. You survived. You fought. You conquered. And then the guilt creeps in, because that feeling, that rush, felt good, and you don't know what that says about you. You look down at a body young, curled unmoving. Their helmet is rolled a few feet away, eyes still open. You force yourself to close them. It doesn't help. The battlefield is quiet now. Quiet in that unnatural ringing way that follows chaos. A bird calls somewhere in the distance. Mocking, inappropriate. Your hands are still shaking. You sit, not because you choose to, but because you have to. Your legs fold beneath you, and you let the mud take you. Around you, men are regrouping, tending wounds, checking the fallen. Someone's singing again, tuneless like before, but softer now, broken. You stare ahead, unseeing as the blood rush fades. And when it's gone, all you're left with is the weight. Your hands won't stop trembling. Not like before, when adrenaline made your limbs buzz with unspent energy. This is different, deeper, more hollow. A kind of shake that comes from within. Like your bones are unsure they still belong to you. You're sitting now, still in the muck, as others move about. Some are collecting weapons. Others are dragging the wounded to one side, the dead to another. No one speaks much. The laughter from earlier has died, replaced by the slow realization that winning doesn't mean okay. You look down and realize your sword is still in your hand. The grip is slick with blood and sweat. You don't remember when you stopped using it. You plant it in the earth beside you, like a flag, and lean forward, elbows on knees, staring at nothing. Then comes the wave. Not blood, not mud. Guilt. It creeps up your spine like ice water. You feel it first in your throat, a lump that doesn't move. Then in your chest where your heartbeat stutters. Then in your stomach now heavy with something beyond hunger. You think, why me? You look at the men who didn't make it. Some with heads bent at impossible angles. Others with vacant eyes as if their souls fled in mid-sentence. One of them was joking with you this morning. You can't remember what he said, only that he laughed when you didn't. Historians still debate the presence of survivor's guilt in pre-modern warfare. Was it felt the same way we feel it now? Or was death too constant to grieve individually? Sitting here, you know the answer. Loss is loss, no matter the century. Grief is grief, even under a helmet. You spot a man across the field alone, rocking slightly. He's pressing his forehead to a bloodied shield, whispering a name maybe, or a prayer, or both. Someone else nearby is digging with their hands, no tool, no plan. Just shoveling soil as if the act might bury something inside themselves. You hear someone mutter, "He was just a kid." No one responds. What could you say? That the kid died well, that it was worth it. You wipe at your face again. Mud, blood. You're not sure which. It doesn't matter. The detachment begins to settle in a layer between your brain and everything you're feeling. It's like putting a blanket over your soul. Not for comfort, for containment. You look around and realize you're surrounded by ghosts. Not the dead ones. The living. Men walking like puppets. Eyes glazed, lips moving silently. One is trying to light a pipe with trembling fingers. Another keeps looking at the same wound on his arm like he's never seen skin split before. You stand slowly. Your legs feel wooden. You make yourself move. One foot, then the other. You find someone you know, Henrik, the younger soldier, who trembled before the charge. He's sitting, knees pulled to his chest, staring at nothing. You crouch beside him. He doesn't look at you, just says, "I didn't mean to kill him." His voice cracks. You nod. That's all you can do. Maybe he's lying. Maybe he's telling the most honest truth of the day. It doesn't matter. You put a hand on his shoulder. He doesn't flinch. The shaking continues, silent screams in your muscles. Later, people will sing songs about this battle. They'll talk of valor and victory, but no one will write about this moment. The part where you survived and it broke you a little. The part where silence is the loudest thing on the field. You're walking, but you're not sure where. The battle is over, but your body hasn't gotten the message. Your feet move automatically, crunching over trampled grass and discarded gear. Your eyes flicker across shapes, armor limbs smoke, but none of it registers like it should. Because the battle doesn't end when it ends. It lingers. In your ears, in your nose, in the pit of your stomach. Phantom sounds ring out when nothing's there. A sword clash, a cry, the wet smack of impact. You turn sharply, only to see wind brushing through empty space. You're not alone. Others wander too, lost in the same fog. One man shouts suddenly. On your left, his voice sharp and terrified. But there's nothing there. He breathes hard for a moment, then covers his face and sits down. no one approaches him. Historians still argue whether post-battle trauma, what we now call PTSD, was recognized or treated in medieval times. The answer is mostly no. Not because it didn't exist, but because there were no words for it, no space for it. A soldier who trembled after battle was simply shaken. One who refused to fight again was branded a coward or touched by madness. You know better now. You feel it in your bones. You feel it in the way your hand reaches for a sword that's no longer there every time a twig snaps. The noises return when your mind drifts. You hear your own name being called even though no one's speaking. You taste copper on your tongue hours after the bleeding has stopped. You feel bruises that haven't formed yet. You pass by a pile of armor neatly stacked. Someone took time to undress the dead, clean their gear folded. There's care in the arrangement. That makes it worse. Later that night, you'll lie down finally, and your body will crave rest. But your mind will rebel. You'll shut your eyes and see a face. Maybe the man you killed. Maybe the one who saved you. Maybe someone who didn't make it, but smiled at you that morning. The details won't be sharp. They'll shift blend. You'll open your eyes, heart racing, throat tight. And even then, you'll hear it. The sound of a horn, distant and imaginary. A memory playing itself on loop. Someone nearby lets out a bark of laughter, too loud, too long. It tapers into sobs. You pretend not to hear. A captain tries to give instructions where to set camp, who's on watch. His voice sounds too normal, too structured. The words fall flat against the ruins of your nerves. You find yourself holding a helmet not yours. It's dented, bloodied. You don't know how it ended up in your hands. You place it gently by a tree, like returning a lost shoe. You whisper something to it. You don't know what. The sky begins to dim again. Full circle. One day. One life. And already your body is preparing for the next fight. Because the campaign continues. Orders will come. Marches will resume. But inside, something's shifted. A thread frayed. A door cracked open that won't close again. This is your life now. Even if your body survives every battle, parts of your mind won't. You'll carry those ghosts with you, silent passengers, and no one will ever see them but you. And they'll never stop whispering. You find it in your satchel wedged between a hunk of old bread and a crushed pouch of dried herbs, the letter. You forgot it was there. Folded neatly. Still sealed with wax. You recognize your own clumsy mark, a squashed thumbprint pressed too hard into a lump of red. You wrote it 2 nights ago when the fire was low and the air felt too still. Before the battle, before the fog settled in your brain. You sit beneath a tree limbs, aching, and stare at it. You remember writing it, not word for word, but the way your hands trembled while you tried. The way you couldn't decide whether to say if I die or when I die. The way you avoided saying anything too honest, just enough to comfort, not enough to frighten. You run your thumb along the edge of the parchment. It's soft now, worn from travel from your fingers, touching it night after night like a charm. You don't open it. You could. But that would break something. The letter isn't for you anymore. It's a version of yourself you left behind, hopeful, or at least pretending to be. Historians have found thousands of unsent letters from medieval campaigns, many never delivered, others kept by soldiers who lived and couldn't bear to send them. Some were filled with affection, some with apologies, a few with wild final confessions. You wonder which yours is. You wrote it to your mother, or maybe your brother. It blurs now. You addressed it properly, tried to keep your handwriting steady. You remember, hesitating over the final line. Should it end with "I love you" or just "be well"? You chose neither. You left it hanging. You couldn't decide if it would be goodbye or just goodbye for now. You traced the lines of the seal, pressing gently, as if the warmth of your fingers might fill the empty space inside the parchment. All around you, others are holding their own letters. Some read them, some burn them. One man tears his in half, then presses the pieces to his forehead before letting them drift away on the breeze. Another is writing a new one, his hand steady despite the bandage wrapped around his fingers. You wonder if you had died, would anyone have sent this? Probably not. That duty usually falls through. People mean well, but the world moves on. Satchels are looted. Corpses burned or buried in haste. Letters like this end up underfoot, forgotten. You tuck it back into your pouch, not because you'll send it now, but because it's yours. It belongs to this moment, a relic of who you were before you knew what your hands were capable of. Maybe one day you'll rewrite it, maybe not. You lean your head against the tree and close your eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of every word you didn't say. The letter presses against your side like a heartbeat you can't get rid of. You survived. That should be enough. But you know that somewhere in your handwriting on that folded piece of parchment is a version of you that didn't. There's a stream nearby, small, almost hidden. You hear it before you see it, the hush of water over rocks, gentle and indifferent. You follow the sound, stepping carefully through a thicket of brambles until you reach it. You kneel, cup your hands, and splash cold water over your face. It shocks you awake for a moment, sharp clarity piercing the fog. The mud and blood smear away, leaving clean streaks across your cheeks. You lean in to drink. Then you see your reflection, and you freeze. It's not the dirt, or the cuts, or the bruises. Those you expect. It's something deeper. The eyes staring back from the surface, too hard, too hollow. As if someone else is living inside your skin. Someone you don't quite recognize. You tilt your head. Try to soften your expression. Smile even. It doesn't help. The smile looks borrowed, out of place. The face staring back doesn't belong to a man. It belongs to a survivor. A changed thing. Something stripped of certainty. This is the moment no one warns you about. Not the fighting. Not the fear. Not even the grief. But the realization that you're not the same. That whatever part of you believed in clean answers, clear heroes, simple good and evil, is gone. Historians still debate whether post-war identity shifts were recognized by medieval societies or if men were simply expected to return unchanged. But here now alone, by a stream, with your own strange eyes reflecting back, you know there's no going back. You hear a twig snap. Turn. It's another soldier older, with a face that might have once been gentle. He looks at you, then looks into the stream beside you. He nods slowly. Takes time, he says, then walks off. You don't ask what he means. You already know. You reach for your face, touch your cheek, as if trying to feel through the changes. But it's not on the surface. It's inside. A rearrangement, a subtle warping of who you were and what you understand. You think about the man who used to sing during camp chores, the one who once cried watching a baby bird fall from a nest, the one who argued that the world had rules and those rules made sense. You wonder where that man went, if he's buried somewhere in the mud with the others, or if he's still hiding inside, quiet and ashamed. You stand, shake the water from your hands, turn away from the reflection. You don't want to look anymore. But the image follows you, burned into your mind, a reminder, a warning. You've survived the battlefield. Now comes the harder part, learning to live with the person who came back. The tavern is warm, noisy, and far too bright. It's weeks later, maybe months. The campaign is over, or at least paused. You've come back to something like normal life. A town with streets, beds, bread that isn't hard enough to kill someone with. You sit at a rough wooden table with a few others from your unit. Familiar faces changed in small ways. A scar here, a limp there. Eyes that don't linger too long in one place. The ale is flowing. The fire is roaring. A bard in the corner is half-heartedly strumming a lute. Someone laughs too loudly at a joke about a pig and a priest. And that's when it starts. The stories. They begin subtly, a chuckle. Remember that guy who tripped over his own spear? The look on that knight's face when his horse bolted, a round of knowing laughter follows. A shared mythologizing. You join in at first. It's easy, harmless, comforting even. But then someone says it. That last fight. Glorious. You stiffen. Glorious. That wasn't glorious. That was panic blood and screams. That was a man with no legs asking for his mother. That was mud in your teeth and death in your mouth. But you don't say that. You smile. You nod. You take another drink. Because the truth is heavier than this table. And no one came here to lift it. Historians sometimes ask why so many medieval chronicles focus on honor and heroism, glossing over the horror. Maybe it wasn't just about pride. Maybe it was survival. Maybe men lied, not just to others, but to themselves, because telling the truth made it harder to keep going. You tell your own story now, not the real one, a version. You talk about how you held the line, how you caught a spear midair you didn't, how the enemy looked terrified they didn't, how it felt good it didn't. The others nod. They believe you, or pretend to. It doesn't matter. You sip your ale. It tastes like metal. There's a pause in the conversation. A moment when someone might say something real. You feel it rise in your throat. A confession, maybe. But then someone slaps your back and calls for another round, and the moment passes. You laugh with them, loudly, casually, just enough to blend in. You'll lie again tomorrow. Maybe in a different tavern. Maybe to someone you love. Because it's easier. Because the truth has teeth. Because the version of you who could tell it didn't make it back. And now, dear listener, the story slows. The tavern fades into the gentle hush of night. The flickering candlelight replaced by the soft glow of a resting mind. You've walked beside a soldier, an ordinary man, made extraordinary not by victory, but by endurance. You've heard his thoughts, his fears, his truths, tucked inside silences. You've felt the chill of his armor, the sting of his doubts, and the warmth of his fading humanity. Now let all of that soften. Let the clang of battle drift into memory like echoes swallowed by fog. Imagine our soldier older now, seated by a fire in a quieter place. His hands no longer shake. His stories come slower, gentler. Not all of them are lies anymore, just the ones that hurt too much to tell plainly. He stares into the flames, not for answers, just for peace. And you wrapped in the calm of your own space, your bed, your blanket, your stillness, you breathe a little deeper. You let your muscles release the day. Let your thoughts slow, like footsteps fading down a quiet road. No more marching, no more noise, just the sound of your breath, the comfort of rest earned, the knowledge that for now there are no battles left to fight. But tomorrow, another story waits. So if this journey meant something to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a fellow traveler. You've survived the chaos. You've earned this calm. And who knows, the next battle might be one you'll want to hear about. Good night, fellow traveler.